I'm out here on another morning in the River West open space area, same spot where I did my G9 review a while ago. Figured I'd visit it again for this S1R review. It's really loud again this morning. Not a surprise, right? With all these red-winged blackbirds around here. But just bear with me at this intro. While we got a really beautiful sunrise, I just wanted to kind of show you guys some of the setting, as well as get into the video for you guys. So today what we're going to be reviewing is this Panasonic S1R. This Panasonic S1R has been awesome. I've been loving it. I've been loving my experience with it so far since I transferred out of the G9 as my primary camera. And I just wanted to share with you guys a little bit about it because as far as I know, I haven't been able to find a single review on the Panasonic S1R in regards to wildlife photography. So today I want to talk to you guys about all the things that are really awesome about the Panasonic S1R and some of the areas that might be a little bit weaker in or that you might have to consider if you want to consider investing into this camera. So welcome to the one and only review of the Panasonic S1R for wildlife and bird photography. So just to talk to you guys a little bit about my personal preference with the Panasonic system, I love Panasonic. I think Panasonic is doing amazing work. I think they produce the best cameras for your dollar, and this is why. I think Panasonic really listens to the customers. I think that they do an amazing job of making cameras that are affordable, yet also amazing quality. For example, when you get up to Canon and Nikon and some of those cameras like that, they may have very good image quality, but you're gonna pay a lot more for them. And the things that are around the same price, often they cheat you out of a lot of those things that you're looking for. However, I like to remind people that your wildlife photography images are not created out of your camera. What I mean by that is your camera can enhance or worsen your quality of images, but it can't create the quality of image for itself. If you don't know how to compose an image, if you don't know how to hit focus every time, if you don't know how to work with birds in the field or whatever type of wildlife you're shooting in the field, you're not gonna get a good image. I've seen plenty of people with amazing cameras or amazing lenses getting terrible shots. And I've seen people that are the reverse, where they don't have the greatest stuff, but they are getting amazing shots. So your wildlife photography is not determined. I hate that stereotype that we believe as wildlife photographers is like, oh, I have to have, you know, the 2.8 500mm lens for me to get an amazing image. No, that's not true. That's of course gonna help. Those things really do help, but that's not gonna create a good image by itself. So what I always recommend is that if you're looking to get into wildlife photography, but you're not there, start on the lower end, start on the end that you can afford a little bit more, and then work your way up towards those more professional end cameras. It's not gonna do you any good if you don't know how to take an image, but you have an amazing camera. So I encourage you guys always to make sure you have the skill set to go with your camera first before you invest into heavier cameras. This Panasonic S1R, the body goes in at about, I think it's like $3,800, and then you gotta add lenses on top of that. So I definitely recommend waiting until you're at the skill level to where you can use that much money in your camera and use it effectively. So first, let's dive into the image quality a little bit on this Panasonic S1R. First of all, we have an amazing full frame 48 megapixel sensor. It just looks gorgeous. There's some other top of the line cameras out there as well who are sitting around 48 megapixels, and I really love this camera. I think it competes with all of them. I think it does an amazing job. You get such a high resolution in your images, you're able to use those images, blow them up as big as you need to, or the nice thing is too, if you're needing to crop in on a subject, you can do that without losing hardly any image quality at all. These 48 megapixels on this sensor have changed the way I'm able to do wildlife photography and just given me a whole new sharpness and look and feel to my images when I'm viewing them and editing them on my computer. Next up in image quality, I want to talk to you guys about noise levels with the Panasonic S1R. Panasonic S1R handles noise levels really well for being such a high, incredibly dense sensor in my opinion. I really am super comfortable shooting up to 3200 ISO, which is like a new field for me. Not even feeling comfortable necessarily always shooting it at 1600 ISO in the past. So 3200 ISO is just awesomely sharp. You don't really lose any sharpness at that point, and you get a certain amount of grain in it, but nothing out of control. Very controlled grain, looks gorgeous, still looks amazing right out the camera even, before even any of the post-processing or nothing. So up to 3200 ISO, very comfortably, and even up to 6400 ISO I'll shoot occasionally, and you'll still get some pretty dang decent images. Unless you're really pixel peeping at that point, you're probably not gonna notice too much. So for having a 48 megapixel sensor, the ISO control and noise levels are really, really manageable, really amazing, and really gorgeous, and I love that about the Panasonic S1R. Compared to some other higher resolution frame sensors or compact ones, this one really holds up its own. The next thing I want to talk about with the Panasonic S1R that I just love is the richness and the quality of their color space. They just have amazing bit depth. They have such good color quality, and that's one of the biggest reasons why I've stuck with Panasonic and honestly haven't switched to some other camera systems. Because Panasonic, along with some others like maybe Canon and Nikon, also have pretty good color space. They do an amazing job, but Sony, while Sony excels in some other areas, for example, they just have a horrible color space that I still can't get over. And maybe it's just not for my style, not for my liking, but all their colors always look so grayish, they look so muted and stuff like that, whereas Panasonic really gives you lush colors that you can tangibly work with, in my opinion, and you just get a lot of diversity in that. And so I'm not saying, you know, if Sony's for you, that's awesome, but just for me and my style, Panasonic does an amazing job with their colors and really lives up to the expectations of what I want to be seeing in my camera. That way when I process it, I can edit it well, edit it properly, and achieve the style that I'm looking for. The next thing I want to talk about is just how amazingly sharp the viewfinder and the back LCD screen is on this Panasonic S1R. It's just gorgeous taking a look at it, to be honest. Like, it's just stunning. It looks like you're looking into the sharpest, you know, possible resolution you can. And it's so helpful for when you're focusing, especially because of an idea that I'm going to get to in a little bit about having non-native lenses. And it's extra important to make sure you're nailing those focuses with manual focus. The viewfinder is incredibly sharp. The backlit LCD screen might be, I don't know if it's still, but it might be around the highest in the field, I believe, somewhere at least close, if not the highest. So you can just see an amazing sharpness in the photos. So when I'm shooting manual focus, I can very easily just tack that focus, get it very fine-tuned, and that's super helpful when it comes to professional wildlife photography, because if your images are even slightly out of focus, it just looks bad. Like, the worst thing in the world is when you have a beautiful photo, and it could have been a beautiful photo, but you have it just slightly out of focus. Maybe it's on the tail of the bird, maybe it's a little bit in front of the bird, and so it just doesn't look good. Like, it's just really bad having it out of image focus. So this Panasonic S1R does an amazing job for helping you keep your photos intact because of how sharp those screens are. That way you can nail it. And even from the G9 had an amazing viewfinder resolution, in my opinion, but this one was even a step up from that. Like, I thought my G9 was just like incredible and mind-blowing, you know, in terms of how well I could tack things, and it's still great, but the S1R just even levels that up, and it just really gets every shot that I'm looking for in focus, as long as my talent and skill levels are up to speed. The next thing I want to talk about is the video capabilities of this camera. This camera also has amazing video capabilities for being a 48 megapixel sensor. A lot of cameras lose a lot of just quality, get a lot of grain when you get higher in those resolution sensors, right? But for video, it still does amazing work. I'm very comfortable shooting it, again, up to 3200 ISO with video, and it'll come out well. You get 4K, 60 frames a second, 30 frames a second. You get 1080p in a lot of different formats as well, and it really will do everything you need to video-wise. Again, I do wildlife photography. However, I also do full-time music videos, short films, weddings, commercial work, and all of that stuff I'm able to use the S1R for, and it holds up really well to that. So if you're looking for a great all-around camera beyond just wildlife photography, the Panasonic S1R can serve a lot of needs. Something I also love about all these Panasonic cameras they've been releasing lately is the double slot function in them all. I really have now come to see that as a necessity for my camera work, because I actually have had files corrupted before on my cameras. When I've shot them, they've come out of the camera, and then for some reason a week later they get corrupted, you know, and stuff like that. So it's just super important, in my opinion, to have a double slot function, because if that happens with, you know, whether that's a client or whether it's just a super great wildlife photography photo you took, and then all of a sudden it's just gone, there's nothing you can do about it, right? I think a double slot function is so essential. I love how the Panasonic S1R has that, and to add to that, it has an XQD card on it, which is just lightning quick. I love how quick that thing is. I can just shoot for days, it feels like, and that thing will keep up with me. So it's awesome because you can have that normal, standard UHS SD card in it, but you can also have that XQD card, and you can just keep shooting, and it'll just lightning quickly catch up with you. Next, I want to talk to you guys about image stabilization. Panasonic S1R has amazing image stabilization. It has 4 stops of in-body image stabilization, and it can just get you amazing quality images out of your images because you're holding it so steadily, you're able to not get hardly any shake in it, and it's amazing. You guys really have to see it for yourselves. However, unfortunately, this is going to lead into my con list as well. So, with the Panasonic S1R, we have a couple of downsides, right? With wildlife photography specifically, this image stabilization is a little rough. And the reason why is because there's currently no good native telephoto lenses that are meant for wildlife photography with the Panasonic S1R. The one that I shoot with, the telephoto that I shoot with, is Sigma 150 millimeters to 600 millimeters. It's a 5.6 to 6.3 f-stop lens, or somewhere around there. Maybe it's 5 to 6.3, I don't remember. But somewhere around there. And it does amazing work. It's really sharp. It has a little bit wide of an aperture, but it's what I can afford at the moment. However, because it's not a native lens, it doesn't work well in terms of matching those image stabilizations together. So it's still not horrible. I've used way worse, you know, it definitely has image stabilization to it. However, it's not quite as nice as my G9 where I had, 5.5 stops combined, because I was shooting with a stabilized lens that could work with the body. The next thing I want to talk about that's either a pro or a con, the way you see it as well, is the build quality and the size and the heaviness and the weight to the Panasonic S1R. Personally, and I'm going to speak out of personal preference, I actually love how heavy and how solid this thing is. The Panasonic S1R, as a lot of people have already commented about it, if you've seen any reviews on it so far, it feels solid. It feels like this thing is not going anywhere in my hand, has an amazing grip to it. I love this grip. It's so solid, so intact. And there's just so many features of this camera that just feel rugged, they feel nice, they feel like they're very solid buttons and knobs to turn, and you don't feel like you're messing with a cheap plastic camera at all. And it's decently heavy. It's much heavier than some of the other full frame cameras I know that are out there currently. It's definitely way heavier than my MFT system. However, I've really come to love that. And for me, weight isn't really too much of a problem. So for some people where weight might be a problem, whether you're older or maybe you have physical problems that you're not able to hold around and carry around as much, then that may be a problem for you that you want to look into. However, if weight's not a problem for you, I love this Panasonic S1R because it feels so solid. It feels like you can just grip it. It doesn't feel like there's going to be any problems. It's never going to fall out of your hand. You feel like if you could drop it, it feels like it's going to, roll around like a rock. I wouldn't really recommend trying that, but that's how it feels. It just feels solid and great in your hands. The very last thing I want to talk to you guys about today for a con with the Panasonic S1R is that, unfortunately, as I've already mentioned before with many Panasonic cameras, there's a problem. There's a problem with the focusing for Panasonic. And that is extremely enhanced by the idea that with wildlife and bird photography, there's no native lens with this camera, which means that AF is really almost completely out of the picture. I just want to say this straightforward. If AF is a necessity for you guys, don't invest in this camera yet. You gotta wait until there's a native lens for it. However, I want to say this too. I believe that manual focusing is an amazing skill to have. I believe that manual focusing will more often get you the shots that you want than even autofocusing. And so me personally, I never shoot with autofocus. I literally never ever shoot with it now because this camera really doesn't have a good lens capability with it. But even when I used to shoot MFT with native lenses, I rarely shot with autofocus very much because of the fact that I like to make sure every time it's nailed in. And because Panasonic has never been a leader in the field anyways in its autofocus, I've never really trusted that it's gonna land all the time because I have taken a lot of shots with autofocus in the past where it didn't land exactly. So keep that in mind, think about it. But also think about the idea that maybe autofocus isn't necessary for everything. A lot of the shots I take anyways, I don't need autofocus for. I've gotten quick enough with manual focus that just takes building time, building skill to get good enough with manual focus to where you can do it almost just as quick as you can autofocus, right? So for me, autofocus isn't a necessity, but sometimes, for example, with flying birds, it can be pretty difficult sometimes to hit those manual focuses. There's a couple of different techniques that I use, whether that's pre-focusing or pulling focus as I'm shooting. Those land me my flying shots with birds when I'm shooting manual focus. However, I do understand that those situations can be really hard with manual focus. But when a bird's just sitting on a perch or stuff like that, those are skills you can easily pick up quick enough to be able to use a Panasonic S1R combined with manual focus with a lens like this, Sigma 150 to 600, that just has a beautiful manual focus rig that's so smooth, you can just tack it perfectly. And so far I've been able to really tack almost every shot that I've looked for with this Panasonic S1R. So focusing really hasn't been a problem for me. And I hope that's an encouragement for you guys to maybe invest into that skill set, or maybe look into the Panasonic S1R when you hadn't been considering it because of that autofocus idea. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for watching another Beyond the Shot. Thank you for watching my review of the Panasonic S1R. And overall, I just want to say I love this camera. I think this camera is an amazing camera. I hope this helps you guys out if you're looking into investing into the S1R. And if you guys are looking into a different camera that's maybe half the price or a little bit cheaper than the setup I have here, which is around $5,500, then definitely look at my G9 review. I recommend that to any low-end professional photographer or amateur or hobby photographer wanting to get serious about their work. I think the G9 is an amazing camera. Still would recommend it to a lot of people. So check out that review in the description below if you guys are looking for that. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to comment below if there's anything else you guys want to learn about or see in the future. And until then, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you guys next time.